So, firstly, we're going to meet the different databases in the Google family. So, there are quite a few different databases that have really distinct purposes. So, we'll just have a quick look through them now. Okay, so has anybody heard of or used these at all? If you just put that in the chat. Ah, right, yeah. So there's a few people who use, yeah, Google Scholar, Google Books. Yeah, quite popular, especially in doing research and study. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, quite a popular choice is Google Scholar. So just going to go through just a little bit of information about the various different um, Google searches, Google databases. So Google Books covers newspapers, magazines, books that have been digitized by Google. So they're all stored in their database. Then we've got Google Patents. So this is around, you probably know this, around things like copyright. So patents are around exclusive rights to inventions and crediting people who have kind of invented those things. So it indexes patents from the top 100 patent offices around the world where patents are registered. So it provides full text for the 20 biggest patent offices, so you can search materials from Google Scholar, Google Books as well. You can also search on the what's called the Prior Art online platform. So this is something that's been set up by MIT and Cisco, and this holds kind of hard to find technical material. So it might be kind of technical drawings and things like that. So it's people things that people can use to work out if something has been created already when they're looking into whether things can be patented or not. Google Arts and Culture, so that's a web page app that's used to find art material, images, artifacts. So you can search collections and galleries from around the world. It's also got quite a few educational videos, things like art history timelines. It's also got toolkits and resources for arts education. So if any of you are working in that field, it's a really, really useful resource. There's also a data set search, so that is online data sets and repositories from around the world. Some of those data sets might be behind paywalls, so that's something to be aware of. So there's also Google Scholar. So as you all probably know, this is more of an academic focus. We'll be covering Google Scholar in a little bit more detail further on in the session. So Google in itself is a more broad-based search of websites that are available. So you might use it for like things like products and services, more of a general search, and that'll give you like full text searches for the things that you're looking for. There's also Google Trends. So this is quite useful. It analyzes trends of searches of Google. So it's really, really useful to monitor events or people just to see what or who's most popular and what is being said about them. So can also be used to compare the popularity of keywords. So, for example, COVID or coronavirus, and it can show over a period of time. So you might be able to see the changes in the language use over a specific period of time. Thanks, Deirdre. You mind moving on? So we're going to look at a few differences here between Google and Google Scholar. Good. So Google in itself, so it searches the internet, but it doesn't search all the internet. So that's something to be really, really aware of. So it indexes around 5% of the total internet. So I think sometimes we assume if we're searching Google, we're searching everything, but we're not. So this is really important. If you're doing research, relying on Google or Google products to find information, you won't be finding everything that is available. With Google Scholar, as the people who have used it will be aware, it indexes scholarly literature. So you're thinking like journal articles, things like conference papers, theses. So it's more aimed at people who are doing that academic research. Mind skipping on, Deirdre? Thank you. So Google can be used to search for different file types. So there's a possibility of kind of indexing the different file types. So you can tell it to search, for example, if you're looking at presenting on a certain topic, you can search for the topic and ask it to search for PowerPoint documents. So you could find similar presentations you might get ideas from. And then you can look for PDFs and things like that as well. There's also useful for looking for grey literature. So, for example, grey literature is anything other than mainstream published books and journals. So you might find things like NHS guidelines, government reports, and using file type can really help to narrow down and help you find those. So Google Scholar will give you full access to papers, but it's important to note that Google is not giving you access. So the university is still paying a lot of money for the journal subscriptions. And some people are making the research open access so that it is freely available. But that, that where Google is actually finding the information from, you can link to it as lead student, you can, because we subscribe to it, and because some people have their researchers open. So, on to the next one, please. So, both Google and Google Scholar use ranking systems. So they're both based on algorithms, but we don't really know what those algorithms are doing. So with Google, we know that results are ranked, but nothing at all about how. So if you're doing a search, you may find relevant information at the top of the returned items, but be aware that there might be other relevant information further down the results. With Google Scholar, it's ranked. There is a little bit of information on where it was ranked. So it's looking at where it was published, but we don't know whether that references whether it's been published in a particular journal or where in the world it's been published. It references by, it ranks by author, but again, we don't know if this is talking about an individual or talking about an institution that they're part of. It also ranks by the times that it's been cited. So that can be a bit problematic. So people might just cite the highest ranked paper. So it's a bit of a perpetuates the cycle. If the top ranked papers are always being cited. So there may be relevant papers that are more niche that you might not be able to see because of the ranking. So it's always good to kind of look through and see if there's anything relevant that's not been cited as much. Okay, thank you, Deirdre.
So Philippe has a question. Why many influential authors with thousands do not have a Google Scholar profile? And also for these ones, is there another database where I can find other publications? So in terms of having a Google Scholar profile, so that is a profile that's actually set up by the academic themselves. So they need to go in and do it. So if they haven't chosen to do it, they won't have a profile. So in terms of kind of looking for publications by particular authors, so if you go to some of the large citation databases that are multidisciplinary, such as Web of Science or Scopus, you will be able to do a search for authors in those databases, which are freely available through the library catalogue. Just click on search through the library catalogue for those databases, and you can search for an author, and then you will be able to link to kind of a profile for that author to see previous papers that they've published. And Sylvia says, is there any limitations to Google Scholar ranking system? So as far as we're aware, we don't know how exactly they kind of rank them, and there is some information about it, but we don't really think there's any limits, and we don't kind of have kind of the kind of full details of that. If you go to Google Scholar and look at their sort of ranking policy, you might find more information about that. And Bashir says, can we consider Google Scholar a database? So really, I would say, Bashir, Google Scholar is more, I guess, it contains lots of papers. So in that sense, it's a database, or it's a knowledge bank, but it's, I guess we would call it more of a kind of search engine. So the content isn't curated by an editorial board, or if there isn't sort of a contents policy as such. It's just a web crawler that's sort of finding all these papers and putting them up there. So in that sense, it's not a bibliographic database such as Web of Science or Scopus that would sort of have contents policies about which papers it indexes. So yeah, any more questions, please ask us. So now we're going to go to just the more practical side. So the search commands for Google and Google Scholar. So before I do that, I just noticed there's a few more questions. Is scholarly literature on Google Scholar peer-reviewed? So most of the papers on Google Scholar will be peer-reviewed, but it doesn't kind of automatically turn out that they are. It just depends kind of how they're put up there. So some may be, some maybe not. There can be predatory papers on Google Scholar. So these are publications that aren't necessarily peer-reviewed. They can be on Google Scholar, but unfortunately, they're also creeping into the subscription databases, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. And they're saying, Shelley saying, is there a difference accessing Google Scholar without Leeds University Library access in terms of results? So I'll just explain, I'll show you in a minute, but basically what you can do if you're part of University of Leeds, in the settings and library links, you can add University of Leeds. So what will that'll do is it'll basically show you where papers are available through the subscriptions of the University of Leeds, and it'll give you a link to access them. It'll also show you PDFs that are freely available on the internet that the Google Scholar web crawler has found. And AA is saying, how can we access Google Scholar using Leeds subscription? I usually access with thinking that all the content is freely available. So I'll show you how to do that just now. Okay, so the search commands for Google and Google Scholar. So I will go in and do a demo of this, but I'll just explain the main search commands. And if you look on page 7 of your handout, you also see these. So in advanced search page, you can search for title, author, a specific date range, or search for specific journal if you're interested in that. You can use the operator OR to search for any of your terms. If you don't use a Boolean operator, so Boolean operators are and, or sometimes there's not, but we don't tend to use that so much. It'll search all of your terms. If you put a minus in front of a word, it'll exclude that particular word. If you want to just search for a phrase, so for instance, young people, if you put that in phrase marks, it'll just search for that phrase. You can also create alerts and keep up to date with new research that will send to the email address that you ask it to send it to. And set up what a few people have been asking there in the chat, how to set up a link to get full text from University of Leeds libraries, and also EndNote links to, if you want to download citations that you find on Google Scholar into an EndNote library or other reference management softwares. So I'm just going to share my screen and go into Google Scholar and show you how these work. So hopefully you can see my screen. So I'm literally just going to type in Google Scholar. Okay, and I'm going to go to Google Scholar. So a lot of you are interested in the library link. So I'll show you first how that works. So on this hamburger thing, these 3 lines at the top, if we go into settings and you click on the library links options, I've got University of Leeds checked, but if you didn't have, you just type in University of Leeds and just click the option for University of Leeds and save. So then if I do a search, say on climate change, it'll show me, we can see these PDFs are freely available, but there might be some, not on this page, but there might be some, let's say, check at Leeds. So this one down here, we can see physiology and climate change. It's not freely available on the web, but it is available through the library subscription. So if you clicked onto that, you would link through to the library catalogue and be able to access it. We can see here, we can also limit to particular years or a custom range of years if we want. We can ask it to sort our results by relevance or by date. We can have any language, or we can, there's also options to I'll show you the language options in a minute. If we only wanted to review articles, we could click on this option to just see review articles. If we wanted to get an alert, create an alert, so if I was interested in climate change but don't want to keep searching for it or don't have time, I can create an alert and it'll link to my email address, and it'll send relevant results to my email address, so I don't have to keep looking for it. So that can be quite useful. I'll just show you some more options. So if we go into the advanced search here, we can search for a whole group of words. So we can search for an exact phrase, such as climate change. We can search for at least one word to appear without a particular word to appear. We can ask for particular authors only and articles between certain dates. So that's kind of another option we might want to try. So I'm just going to go back to the home page. So if you didn't want to search for an article to get to advanced search, you could just type in Google advanced search. And then, yeah, just go to the advanced search option here. So yeah, we have those options. Also in the settings, we have the language option here. So if we click on the language option, we can search, if we wanted only Dutch papers, we can choose to search for Dutch papers only. Be aware, and click on the option to save. Be aware when you do this, searching for Dutch papers only, that you will also get papers, papers only written in this language. You'll also get papers with the names of Dutch authors, so it's not kind of perfect, but it will kind of limit the results you get. So just going back, if we wanted to export citations to our EndNote library or any of these software such as BibTeX, RefMan, RefWorks, we choose import citations into EndNote and we click on save. And then if I do my search for climate change, we have this option, import into EndNote. And if we click on this option, it'll create a file that will import into EndNote, which is kind of quite useful. So now I'd like to hand over to you. So I'd like you to have a go at searching for papers by this author, Alan Hayward, published from 2015 onwards. So just search and limit the results. Also to find only review articles on sedentary behaviour, have a go, see if you can do this. And if you're interested in academic papers published in the French language, how would you refine your search to find these? So we're going to spend just about 3 or 4 minutes having a go. You can use these examples. If you have your own examples you'd like to try out on, you can have a try with that. Again, the handout, there's a link in the handout to a sort of step-by-step explanation on how to do these. So we just spent about 5 minutes doing this. So I asked about sedentary behaviour. So we're just looking for authors or articles on sedentary behaviour that are review articles. So it's a separate exercise to the one on Alan Hayward. Yeah, Sarah. So yeah, you would need to give the 2 variations of sedentary behaviour. Has anyone managed to get to the last question, finding the academic papers in the French language? Great. Okay, so if you didn't get a chance to finish that, you can do it in your own time. And as I said, the handout has a step-by-step guide on how to do it. And please keep asking your questions in chat. They're really great questions. Thank you. So now we're going to look at Google. So in Google, in advanced search, again, you can search for a specific site. So this is really, really useful. So if you only want to find sort of papers from, for instance, NHS sites, you could search just for limit to just NHS sites, or from educational institutes, you could limit them to EDU, which are educational institutes. You can also search for specific file types. So for instance, if you just wanted PowerPoint presentations, you could limit them to PowerPoint presentations or PDFs. You can search for a specific language and also a specific date range. So that can be quite useful, as it was in Google Scholar. And you can also change the country or region. So if you wanted to search only on websites in a certain country or region, you can limit to that. You can use the R command, again, as in Google Scholar, to search for any of your words. You can use verbatim to include all the words. So if you wanted to include all the words in your search, there's an option to choose tools and verbatim. You can use speech marks if you just wanted to find a certain phrase, such as mass media, makes your search more focused. And again, you can use the minus to exclude terms. And I'm just going to share my screen with you again, just to kind of run through how to do these. So we're going to go to Google this time. Google.com in any search engine will get you to Google. So in Google, if you want to get to the advanced search screen, you have to type in Google Advanced Search to get there, and it explains in the handout. And then the first search result is the advanced search on Google. So in advanced search, you could ask it to find all the words, so climate change, find all these words, find an exact word or phrase, find any of these words, don't include particular words, none of these range. And numbers ranged from, so for instance, unit of measurements, you could put between 10 grams and 50 grams. You can narrow your results to any language, so there's the option, lots of different languages here, to a particular region. So if you only want to look at websites from a particular region, you can do it in there. To a site or a domain. So if you're only interested in NHS, you could limit it to NHS. Terms appearing anywhere in the page, or if you want to be more specific, it has to be maybe in the title of the page or in the URL. So there's options there. And if you want to not show explicit results, if you want to be more cautious, you could hide explicit results that may be slightly kind of strange. File format, you can choose any type of file format. So there's lots of different PDFs, Excel, Word documents, text-rich, Shockwave, and usage rights. So you can choose pages that are free to share, some that aren't filtered by licenses, various different options there. So yeah, the advanced search option is really useful. So just going back to the Google homepage. So if I do a search for climate change again, you can see it's yeah, just bringing me loads of options. But again, I could limit it to, if I want to do it here, there's an option to climate change, limited to file type. I can type in PDF and it'll just search for PDFs. So that can be quite useful. Again, we have the option to limit it to just search for images, videos, books, and again, there's other options, maps, shopping. There's also this tools feature here. So we can ask for verbatim results. So these are results that have to have the word climate change in them. So this verbatim tool is quite useful to use if you're getting back quite kind of broad results that don't seem that relevant. And again, it's probably good to kind of play around with this yourself and try out all these other options using the handout, just to kind of work your way around it. And just check out as well, because it can change from time to time how things are done on Google and Google Scholar. So the information may change. So now I'd like you to have another go. So if you're interested in looking for websites from academic institutions, i.e. sort of where the URL ends in ac.uk, that discuss open research. So have a go at searching for this, and how would you limit to these sites? Try doing that. If you'd like to search for information about sharing research data, but only from websites in the Netherlands, how would you do this? And if you were developing a presentation to support well-being at work and you wanted to see what other academic institutions have presented on this topic, such as PowerPoints, how would you search for this? So I'd like you just to we're going to spend about, again, about 5 minutes on this. And if anyone has any questions, please come on the microphone or ask in the chat. Okay, so Aya, you want to find academia to ac.uk. So I'll just share my screen again and show you how to do that. So we're going to go into Google. So if we go into, type in Google Advanced Search and go to Advanced Search. So we could limit it by, so just check what the actual example is. So we want to limit to websites from URL. So say I was looking for climate change again, and we want to limit it to a particular site or domain. So if it was UK universities, it would be ac.uk, and we would click on Advanced Search. So you can see then all the results coming here are all from UK academic institutions, and there's sort of more information in the handout about how to do that. So we're going to talk about how Google Scholar compares to subscription databases. So can you let me know in chat or by coming on the microphone, so what do you think the main differences are between Google Scholar and subscription databases? Yeah, so Sylvia says captures more grey literature, so non-academic, non-commercially published peer-reviewed journals that you might not find in the subscription databases. And by subscription databases, just to clarify, so we mean the databases that the library pays to subscribe to, such as Medline, Web of Science, Scopus, those type of databases. Okay, just talk a bit about the difference. Yeah, Michael, there is some literature from subscription databases that might be published open access that will be in there. So just to explain a bit, so I would say Google Scholar's coverage in arts and humanities is probably greater than would be in the subscription databases. That's because it doesn't have a content selection policy. It's just got a web crawler that crawls the web, and it will find things like preprints, book chapters, book reviews, policy documents that may not turn up in the subscription databases. The ability to do advanced searching is a bit more limited in Google Scholar, as you will have seen. In some of the subscription databases, you can kind of limit a lot more, use subject headings, thesaurus terms, combine, make more complex searches, that particularly Medline and the Ovid databases. You can do quite complex searches as well as Web of Science and Scopus. So it's kind of it's more basic, the type of searching you can do. So I talked a bit about content and selection policies. So the subscription databases will have a strict policy around how they add documents and what documents they select to be part of their database, and this will be clearly stated. So for Google Scholar, there's no sort of strict contents policy, so it can come from lots of different sources, and this can lead to an issue of sometimes predatory publications can creep in. So these are, I mentioned these earlier, so these are publications that aren't from peer-reviewed journals. They're often journals that are set up by people who want to make money out of the publishing industry. So these will appear, some of them creep into subscription databases. There'll be a lot more of these in Google Scholar. Language, broadly, there's a very strong English language bias in both Google Scholar and subscription databases. So citation manipulation can also occur in Google Scholar. So it's really easy to set up a fake profile and add fake papers and reference other authors, and this will increase your citation count. A Spanish group tried this of researchers to see if it worked back in 2013, and it massively inflated the citations of their papers. So this is sort of gaming and sort of fraud, but as it's just a web crawler that's choosing, you know, which citations it's going to find, it can happen. So accessing abstracts can be harder in Google Scholar, because these are normally freely available in subscription databases. The exporting functionality I showed there, exporting to EndNote or other databases, is a bit more limited in Google Scholar. You can only export, I think, to a maximum of 20 at a time, papers at a time, whereas in the subscription databases, often you can export 500 or to maybe 3,000. And also citation searching. Evidence has shown that Web of Science and Google Scholars will find similar citations. So yeah, that's sort of the similarities and differences between them. And Corey is asking, yeah, we'll send the PowerPoint to you. We should have sent it before the session, but if you don't have it, we can send it to you. Yeah, so because of these reasons, it's very important to search more than one source when carrying out a literature search. So search Google Scholar, but also search the subscription databases, and you can deduplicate in EndNote or whichever reference management software where there's an overlap between between articles returned. So other limitations with Google and Google Scholar. It's important to be aware that both Google and Google Scholar use algorithms that reinforce bias and reflect human prejudices. So papers of white kind of males and will be tend to come to the fore, and people from ethnic minority groups, their papers don't tend to come to the fore. And it's the same thing in Google Scholar. There's all these biases in the algorithms because the people programming the algorithms tend to be from certain backgrounds. As I mentioned, Google Scholar indexes predatory journals, so journals that are publishing articles that aren't properly peer reviewed and are making money out of publication process without doing all the peer reviewing that the author should get. This isn't just a problem for Google Scholar, it also is creeping into the citation databases as well. And they are removed when they come in, but yeah, the ones that are already there stay there. Google Scholar ranking placed more importance on highly cited paper. So in terms of who's written it and where it was published. So this can be biased against people who aren't publishing highly cited papers, but they may be very relevant to your research area. Google will only show you content that it thinks is relevant to your location. So this can limit what you can find. You may need to change it, as we showed you, to ask it to search for other regions to get broader range of papers. As we all know, with all search engines, a lot of search engines, Google Scholar knows a lot about you and is collecting and sharing the database. So it knows what you search and what you're interested in, and it's sharing this information. There's also a lack of reproducibility with searches. If we both did the same search, you might get different results because it'll be using algorithms based on who it thinks you are and who it thinks I am and what it thinks we're interested in. So it's hard to reproduce searches so easily. In subscription databases, the reproducibility is a lot better. If anyone has any questions, please ask in the chat. And I'm just going to hand over to Emily, who's going to talk to you about other search engines available.
Thanks, Deja. So yeah, just a little bit about other search engines. So we don't want you to go away thinking that Google is the be all and end all. It is the largest, but there are other search engines that you can use. So just giving a couple of examples here. So there's DuckDuckGo and Bing, and there's lots more available as well. So the thing to think about with DuckDuckGo, Google collects a lot of information about what you're searching for, and DuckDuckGo has a bit more of a kind of privacy. There's a bit more anonymity to searching as well. So that's something to think of as well, if you're concerned about that. And just quickly to thank you all for being here. Hope you've really enjoyed the session. If you've got any questions, if you've got any further, you'd like any further support around these topics, you can contact us for help and advice. So the research support team for the PhD and EdD students here is research@library.leeds.ac.uk, and the Skills at Library team for taught students is skills@library.leeds.ac.uk as well.